Unlocking the power of modal verbs in reported speech. Hello language explorers. Welcome back to another video in our Learning English, Intermediate Grammar series. Today, we're going to dive deep into the world of modal verbs in reported speech. We're specifically focusing on the role of modal verbs in reported speech. As we know, modal verbs give additional information about the function of the main verb that follows it. But how do they work in reported speech? Let's find out. Firstly, let's recap. Modal verbs are special verbs that give additional information about the mood or tense of the sentence. These include words like can, could, may, might, will, would, shall, should, must, and ought to. Modal verbs are unique as they provide context, expressing ability, possibility, permission, or obligation. Now, let's talk about reported speech. Reported speech, or indirect speech, is when we report what someone else has said without using their exact words. Instead of using quotation marks, we change the tense and perspective of the original statement to match the situation in which we're retelling it. So, how do modal verbs come into play here? In reported speech, modal verbs often shift to match the tense of the reporting verb. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but typically, present tense modal verbs become past tense in reported speech. For example, can changes to could, will changes to would, may changes to might. However, some modals like could, would, should, might, and ought to can remain the same. Here are a few examples to illustrate this. Direct speech. He says, I can play the guitar. Reported speech. He says he could play the guitar. Direct speech. She says, I will be there on time. Reported speech. She said she would be there on time. Remember, these shifts in tense help to show that the reported speech happened in the past. Just when you think you've got the hang of it, English throws in some curveballs. Not all modal verbs follow the simple rule of tense shifting. The modals must and have to are often interchangeable in reported speech. Similarly, can in direct speech can also be reported as was, were able to in reported speech. For example, direct speech. He says, I must complete the assignment. Reported speech. He said he had to complete the assignment. Direct speech. She says, I can swim. Reported speech. She said she was able to swim. As you can see, mastering modal verbs in reported speech involves understanding both the general rules and the exceptions. And there you have it. That was our deep dive into the role of modal verbs in reported speech. Remember, practice makes perfect. So don't shy away from trying to incorporate these into your everyday English. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and as always, let the power of language unlock your world.